Austin, present. Rich Jeffrey.
Present.
Eric Ekdahl.
Present.
Carrie Ellison.
Present.
Teresa Keen.
Present.
Cheryl McGuire.
Here.
Dylan McGuire.
Here.
Bill Vosberg.
Here.
Tim Wolf is absent.
Okay, we have quorum and we are in session. I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mickey and a second by Teresa. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to item number 4, is the introduction of our AFS exchange students. We've got Ms. Hendrickson here tonight to help us find out a little bit more about the program and our wonderful students here this year.
Wonderful.
Go
Should
for it.
we come somewhere?
You can come on over here.
Anywhere in the middle of the room probably would be great.
Yeah. We want them on camera.
It's not really-
Okay, so, again, thank you so much for allowing us to come. This has become kind of a really fun tradition. These are 4 of the 5 exchange students this year. But we actually have 6 because Sky Dixon has returned from India, where she spent a month on a STEM Changemakers program. I think really learning about sustainable, working with, I don't know if you're familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Goals, but that was a scholarship program focusing on ways to save our environment and just kind of the way the world can work together. So hopefully you'll hear from her at some point because she comes back with a lot of interesting stuff. So I'm Lisa Hendrickson. I've been with the AFS program for over 30 years, I think. And I'm a retired Spanish teacher, which most of you know that. I also want to recognize Jan Johnson, who is here. She is another AFS volunteer. Her family hosted, was it the second or the third? The second exchange student that ever came to Monroe. Was that
64, 65, long time ago. I was only a sophomore.
So they hosted this woman from Germany, and her granddaughter came back a couple of years
Just
ago.
a couple of years ago,
Was
to
it the
Houston.
Was it the COVID year?
No, it was the year before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, her granddaughter actually came back. And there's just a lot of stories. Again, we have Rich Jeffrey, a former AFS host. Thank you very much. And yay! Oh, look at you! Wow! Thank you. This is Sky Dixon. I was just mentioning you today. So now you can tell she was in India, right? Okay. So I guess, I'm not sure, I'm going to give a brief introduction to these students and then please share some questions with them. I think I'm just going to have you say your name loudly and pronounce it the way it's supposed to be.
My name is Anastasia Yahu.
Okay. She is from Palestine. She is here with the AFS YES program, which is a scholarship program for students from countries with a significant Muslim population. This is a post 9/11 government initiative, so we're really happy to have her here. She is hosted by Daniel and Amber Calcott with her brother and sister. So they're all here tonight, so thanks for coming. Then we have, oh geez, I'm gonna be Christina, well, no, say your name, I'm not gonna.
My name is Christina Hallmer.
And she is from Austria, and she is hosted by Nicole and Andrew Josephs. This is?
Lilia Sunkina.
Ooh, nice. Lilia is from Estonia. I don't think I even knew your country existed. On the Baltic Sea, by the way. And she is hosted by Frank and Cassandra Wolf, but who are not here tonight. And then we have,
Eloise Mer.
oh, I love it. Did you hear her last name? Yeah, so cool. She's from France, obviously. And Eloise is hosted by Katie Lego, who was also a biology teacher at the high school. And then finally, of course, Sky Dixon, who is the daughter of our super substitute teacher. Mrs. Katie Dixon, so yeah, again, the kids are, I did tell them that you're from the STEM Change Makers program, that you were in India, you were looking about sustainable goals and ways to save the environment. Yes?
Perfect.
All right, but you probably, did they ask you to come back with some projects to try to share with your school?
Kind of just a lot of ideas, and trying to share that. So
Good, and are
they're
you,
not specific programs, just values and things to instill.
nice. And are you part of Earth Club at the high school?
Yes, I'm the president.
Yeah. So I'm gonna guess that's part of the focus of Earth Club also.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see now, so far this year, who played tennis? Raise your hands. Okay, Eloise and Chrissy, we call her, and Chrissy was varsity tennis player. What happened at state tournament or something?
Oh. I just lost.
But you did go to tournament play.
What?
You did play in the state.
No, I played in subsectionals.
Okay, and then you lost.
Yeah.
But how fun, she came and she was able to play varsity tennis and we really enjoyed having, and as you can imagine, everyone who meets Chrissy says, do you play basketball? And the answer was, no, but what are you doing now?
I'm probably going to play basketball.
Right? Have you tried it? Can you dribble a ball?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to a few open gyms.
Good, well, and again, as you know, these kids are encouraged to try new things, so. And Lilia, you got to run cross-country,
Yes.
and what was that like?
Oh, it was great. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it was really cool. But to be honest, I ran only once when we had a home running. But I did great. I think all people said that. I wasn't the last one, so.
And Anastasia played volleyball. What was that like?
It was my first year playing volleyball, so it was really interesting and fun. I got to try like the diving thing, like when you fly, and it was like really interesting and fun.
And I must mention that Sky did go to state. Tell us a little bit about your cross-country experience, or are you going, or where are you
Yeah,
at?
this Saturday we're going to state. We qualified last Saturday, so that's super exciting, and I'm really excited to go, so it should be really fun.
A little story about Sky, when she knew she was in India for the month of August. And she was very concerned because she wants to train. She's a very dedicated runner, as your dad is a coach,
Yeah, and it's
an assistant coach. And well, if you know Mark Dixon, he's a runner. There's no question about that. So anyway, she was concerned because she wanted to keep running in India. Well, you're in a tropical place and there's no place for you to run.
no, yeah, they're pretty strict about not letting us go out by ourselves.
Especially probably women.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, again, given the culture. So tell us how you trained while you were in India.
I think my host family they never said anything, but I think they might have been disturbed because for 30 minutes a day there was a lot of jumping going on in my room and cardio, so I don't know. They never said anything, but I think they were just too polite.
Well, they probably are really wondering about Americans. What is that? So, that's what I can tell you about the kids, and we would entertain any questions.
How long are you here?
Actually, I can answer that pretty easily. They can't come in August, and they stay until sometime in June as a rule. So it's a full academic year.
What is your school year like for you there? Do you go year round?
When do you start school and when do you finish school in your country?
In Austria, we start in the beginning of September, then we finish school at the end of June.
Same, okay.
Anything that you guys found very different here? Interesting, but different?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of kind of like cheese. But I'm a cheese lover, so. That's the food for me because in France it's very healthy and here, sorry, but it's not very
Not very healthy, yeah.
I think we eat more what we would call processed food, you know, like
Yeah.
from a can or from a frozen.
Just want to clarify, our food is healthy? She's just talking in general. Okay, well, you guys see that? Like I'm just like feeding her ice cream day in and day out. Of course, we do eat a lot of ice cream.
Is that in my house, Katie?
You want to call her something?
Anybody else? Something interesting here.
Very open people. In Estonia, people are more like, I don't know, they don't talk with people in the store. When I go to the store, like at least one person said, I love your outfit. Oh, I love your accent. And I really people do that here. It's so cool. I love that.
Something that was interesting in India, in one sentence or less.
That's difficult. I'd say just so many of our cultural values are just very, very different. I just say that their family values, I mean, we have close families here, but then you go over to India and, I mean, there's 20-year-olds still living at home, or even 30-year-olds sometimes, and just how close they are. I mean, even like in my home, there was a cousin that was 30 and still lived in the house, and he would have to ask to go out to a restaurant, even though he was 30 years old and had his own wife. So that was really interesting, that just how different their family structures are than ours are here. So yeah, that was probably the biggest.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's very interesting. Yeah. I know in other countries, again, I think that's pretty common that you stay with your family at least until you can afford to move out. But I think in other countries, there's more independence about coming and going. Yeah. These kids all experienced cheese days, which is a lucky year for them. Any reflections or comments about cheese days?
Cheese grits were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really good.
And they're gonna be too polite, but I asked them to do that in WhatsApp, and I think somebody said a lot of drunk people. Which was true.
Who's looking forward to the snow? Any snow lovers or no? Not a one in this group.
We do have snow in Austria, so.
Yeah, I think all of you experienced. No, Palestine.
Yeah, we have snow in the city.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Okay, France and Palestine.
Favorite memory so far? I know it's early, right?
Like what was an experience that was like unusual or special for you?
For me, it's probably playing at Nielsen Stadium tennis. Yeah.
I'd say the football games. Like I've never watched American football before, and it was like really interesting and aggressive. Yeah.
I think cross country. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, tennis, American football. Yeah.
What did you think of homecoming?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Sky, what was your favorite memory that you'll hold on to from your trip?
I think for me, it wasn't one specific memory, but I think the cool thing about the program that I went on was not only did I get to form a bond and kind of immerse myself in the culture through living with the host family, but I also got to know like 30 different kids from 14 different countries while I was going to school there. So that added another layer of cultural immersion, and now I have all these friends from Europe and different parts of Asia that I still get to connect with online. So I think that is still a memory that I'm able to hold on to and continue.
Are you able to connect with your families while you're here? Do you FaceTime with them, or you get to talk to your families back home some?
FaceTime, time every month.
It's such a new world.
Yeah, it's, compared to
Yeah,
years
I
ago.
mean, I actually, was listening to a gentleman who came in 1965, not to Monroe, but to another place, and he's now he came from Afghanistan on a boat. And the only contact he had with home was letters. He's now an aerospace engineer and involved in, he works for NASA right now. But, anyway, we asked them, don't be in touch with your family all the time.
Yeah.
Because, not that they always do that, but, if you're going to truly immerse yourself, I mean, yes, you're in touch and it's so easy. But if you're really gonna immerse yourself, your family isn't this is your new family, and this is how you really learn the culture, which is a big jump. You know, honestly, a new culture is not comfortable. It's like putting on something that doesn't fit. I'm working with a girl from Thailand right now who is freaking out because she doesn't tell people when she's upset. And she doesn't tell you, she might tell this person who can then, and to be in a direct American culture, it's like, takes some work. It's a lot of work. But then they learn and you go home and you're different people. They're independent and they have, then they have to adjust to their own culture again. And they have everything they learned from what it was like to be in another country and have a different perspective, which is really important for world peace, which is what AFS is all about.
Any other questions? Well, just
Enjoy.
thanks for being AFS students. It's really brave of you guys to come all the way over here and, like Ms. Hendrickson said, kind of detach yourself from everything that you know and going to India and doing the same thing. Just good job, you guys, for taking that leap. And for the host families, thank you. I know how hard it can be to open your home up to another person and add somebody to your family. It's a big undertaking, and I don't think we tell you guys thank you enough, so thank you for all that you're doing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Louise, I thought you were gonna say pickleball was your favorite part of being here. Remember playing pickleball in the summer?
Oh, yeah.
I thought for sure that was gonna be your favorite thing that you did here. We'll get you over there again.
I still live up in Boston.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to item 5, consent items. So any board member wish to remove a consent item for individual consideration? Hearing none, we have into the record, we're approving the minutes for the Board of Education meeting on October 10, 2022, the School District of Monroe annual meeting minutes of October 17, 2022, approval of receipts and expenditures for September of 2022, approval of Northside Elementary Safety Drill Report, approval of Middle School Safety Drill Report, approval of Abraham Lincoln Safety Drill Report, approval acceptance of community donations, Howard and Mary Ann Johnson, $30 to Backpack Buddies, and David and Joanne Babler, $50 to Backpack Buddies. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Terry. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to public comment. Nobody here for public comment this evening. We have no old business, so we're on to new business. This will be a first reading discussion only of a set of Neola policy consent updates brought forward from policy from the previous meeting. Entertain any questions about those? Administration's happy to answer any of those questions.
So the policy that we have in consent right now for the board to consider, those were all language changes based on legislation and litigation that's happened in the last year and a half. So they were policies that there were no option choices for the school district to make based on the way Neola brings their policy forward that we subscribe to.
Okay. All right. So that'll come back for second reading and approval at the next full board meeting, if there are no additional questions. Okay, on to item B. It'll be approval of the 2022 through 23 budget adjustments and possible alternates and levy and alternate levy. We'll take these one at a time. These are coming back to us now that we've got our third Friday counts and numbers zeroed in, right?
Yes, we got a little preview of these at the annual meeting because we had the numbers and we kind of ran the numbers for that night. So it's just kind of bringing these forward for official adoption. The final revenue limit came in $80,667, higher than what we projected in September. We actually, our 3-year membership average, we had 43 more students than what we projected then, still less than where we were 2 years ago, pre-COVID, but the 3-year membership average then still went down 40 students, but it was higher than what we projected. And so we live in a world right now where we're actually, when we have a higher membership than what we projected, it means we get less money because of one of our exemptions goes away or lessens. And so that decreased our declining enrollment exemption by $155,000. We did have an extra $193,000 come in because of open enrollment students who moved during the course of the year last year. So we might not have got to count them for our third Friday count, but then they then moved into the district but continued somewhere else, or maybe they left and did partial years, and so they make an aid adjustment and a revenue limit adjustment for us for this year of $193,000. And we also had an additional $42,641 of Wisconsin Parental Choice Program revenue. So what that is that's an in and out. So that is students who are going to a private school but have applied for the tuition waiver, and so we get accredited under our revenue limit, but we don't get those dollars. Those dollars get reduced out of our state aid and go directly to those private schools. So the Madison Diocese doesn't participate in that, so those aren't St. Vic students. Those would be students who are going to other private schools in Wisconsin, and they don't release us those names or individuals, and so I can't tell you who they are or where they're going, but that's what that is. State equalization aid came in $11,139 more than we projected, and so we were projecting over $1 million increase, and it actually came in just a little more than what we projected. So it's $1,057,728 increase from last year. So that's, we've been kind of talking about that in our referendum discussions that was coming, so that is a reality. Our computer and personal property aid saw an increase of $1,003 from the annual meeting projection. That's a decrease of $1,872 from last year's actual. And then the per pupil aid increased from the September estimate by $11,130 as a product of those students' counts going up. So the transfer to Fund 27 on the expenditure side was increased by $101,215 to reflect what we had in Fund 27. I think at the last minute when we were preparing the budget, we had moved some money, and we just need to make sure that our transfer out matches our transfer in. And so our budget deficit, when you net those revenues with that expenditure line item change, was increased by $9,418, and our annual meeting projected deficit, was $591,867. So, when you look at the budget change document, you'll see just a little change to the 210 taxes line, the 620 general state aid line, and the 690 other revenues line, as well as in the expenditures and the $410,000 transfer out. So.
Okay. Any additional questions for Ron on the 22 through 23 budget adjustments? voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to item B, approval of alternate 22 through 23 budget adjustments if the referendum passes.
So this would be,
I'm sorry, that's item C.
in the event that the referendum would pass, this is the budget adjustment we would need. Basically, it only affects Fund 30, which is Funds 38 and 39. 39 is the long-term debt, which is really what gets affected. And so it increases the levy to reflect the cost of the levy to pay for the school project, high school project if it was passed. And it obviously increases the expenditures of the payments, the first years of payments for the payoff of the school, so.
Okay. So again, this would only take effect if the referendum passes. I'd entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion by Eric and a second by Teresa to approve the alternate 22-23 budget adjustments if the referendum passes as reported by Ron Olson. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to item D, approval of 22 through 23 district levy.
So this just, it's not a big change, but this just then reflects the small change from all those maneuvers that we just made with all the other adjustments that were made. And so the total levy, is, and this is without a referendum, would be $11,543,365. If this levy would stand, if the referendum doesn't pass. Again, a large reduction in our operating levy, would be the result that does that, which is obviously why when we talked about the next line item with the levy with the referendum being successful, why the increase isn't that much when we get to that, because we are seeing a 10% reduction in our operating levy for Fund 10. And so the net total levy reduction would be 7% and $11,543,365 without the referendum passing.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
So,
Motion by Phil, second by Nikki, to approve the 22 through 23 district levy as reported by Ron. Questions or comments or discussion? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to item E, approval of the alternate 22 through 23 district levy if the referendum passes.
Yes, this obviously is the information that we've been telling in relation to the referendum since we got the final numbers out there. The final levy, should the referendum pass, would be $14,850,031. The levy rate would be $9.33, so it's a 13-cent increase over last year's levy of $9.20. And so with the falling operating levy, it really helps to offset the increased costs of the debt service levy. But that's that 13 cents that we've been talking about of the increases. Now that we have those numbers, the final mill rate, levy rate increase from last year. When you look at it in a historical perspective, last year was the lowest levy rate we've had in many years. And so when you go to 933, we would be looking at being $2 to $3 less than many years in the last 20 to 30 years, and basically we would be looking at being 45 cents less than we were as recently as the 2020-21 school year. So it's helpful that we have that falling operating levy to help offset the increased cost of the referendum should the referendum pass.
Entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Eric and a second by Terry to to approve the alternate 22-23 district levy if the referendum passes as reported by Ron Olson. Additional questions or comments? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to item F. It's approval of high school cash deposit signature authorization. Sounds like we're taking care of one of the last CDs that were over there.
Yes, this is an old CD that actually still resides with a previous bank that we worked with, and obviously had previous administrator signatures on it. So we want to have the board approve the new signatures so that we can basically cash that CD out and get it in with our other accounts. And then, if rates keep coming back, we may be looking at some CDs again, going forward. It's something we haven't had to really look at seriously for a few years because the returns weren't much on a CD either. But certainly we want to get this money moved over and then give us some options as we move forward.
Okay. Proceeds from cashing that out go into the high school activity accounts?
They do, and I can't tell you, I'm trying to see if they have it in here specifically what sub-account that belongs to. But it goes into the high school activity funds.
Okay. So it goes back where it came from with the additional $4,000 in accrued interest, approximately.
Yep.
Any questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Teresa, second by Nikki, to approve the Monroe High School CD signature authorization as recommended by Jeremy Jackson, high school principal. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. On to item G. This will be our academic update. Turn it over to administration to walk us through that.
Mr. Parity?
Yes, I'm gonna grab the clicker here quick.
So I have 10 minutes and there's 15 slides. So I'll start by saying I'm not going to go through slide by slide, but it is there for you to review, and I'm open to sitting down with anyone that wants to dig in and meet with me and go through all the things that we're doing across the district and using this data or anything else that we're doing with our PLC work. So tonight I just wanted to provide a brief update with our district benchmark assessment that we give a couple times throughout the year to monitor the work, and then share just a little bit of information on a few of the slides, not all of them, and highlighting some things that we look at and how we're using the information across the district. So just start with giving a brief overview of the assessments we use. So K-8, we have the Fast Bridge assessment that we give 3 times a year, and both ELA and math. It serves as a screener, and we also use it as a progress monitoring tool to measure kids' progress if they're getting specific targeted interventions. The assessments are different for K1, 2, 3, and then 4 through 8. So K1, obviously, we're assessing foundational skills. Second and third get a little bit of a mix between foundational skills and then comprehension. And then 4 through 8 on the ELA side is more comprehension. And then 9 through 11, we just started this last year. We use Mastery Prep, which is retired ACT. Started using that last year. We gave it in the fall and in the winter. That's assessing reading, English, science, and math. Students get immediate feedback and immediate results that we turn around and use. And then in the slides, as you guys are looking through those, on the FastBridge side, you're looking at norm data and students that score at the 50th percentile and above. And we're just looking at the same cohort of students from fall to spring last year. And then on Mastery Prep side, I broke it down of this year's incoming freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, and you'll see multiple data points for fall, winter, and then how they scored this fall, and then what the target goal score is for each of those areas. I'm going to skip ahead to 3 and then go back to 2 because I want to talk about October 7th. You guys approved a few different days in our calendar last year that we felt were super important in giving our teachers principals' time in looking at this benchmark data. So I just wanted to highlight this because this was extremely important for our teachers, principals to sit down and look at this data across all grade levels. So, you know, as they break down the benchmark data, they're filtering it to look at what skill areas, what trends do we see where there are certain things we need to target with our instruction. They're also looking at which students need additional support and what types of resources and support systems do we need to put in place. So we can drill down in and specific to Mastery Prep, we can do an item analysis which aligns to our standards and targets for each of our courses and making sure we have the right power standards. And then obviously our teachers are using formative checks to monitor those skills. And then we're making sure we have the right support systems in place to support those students. So October 7th, that in-service day was used to be able to do a lot of this work to start the year, which really sets up the support that we provide for students. At the district level, we use this information in combination with, I would say, the state assessment data and looking at which buildings maybe need more support, maybe are lacking resources. So we'll be able to have that kind of high level view of which areas we might need to pay more attention to. Go back to this one because this is just a summary of the district benchmark data. So if you look at the top part, it's on ELA. You can see the average growth for proficiency in advance for elementary ELA, middle school, and then high schools and points. You want to see a 2-point growth on those subgroup areas. So we just looked at English and reading and we had 0.8. And then in math, you can see there's growth there for elementary. We had math that did not grow, and then about a 0.7 point growth for math for high school.
And these were last year's, correct, Todd?
These are last year, so I'm just gonna point out, this is really our baseline, right? Like we did a lot of things last year and putting things in place with our PLC work and making sure we got everything ready for this school year with our formative checks, our power standards, our learning targets, implementing Mastery Connect to monitor that work. So this is really a baseline for us that we'll monitor throughout the year to see, are we making progress with all the things that we're doing across the district. So I just wanted to point out a couple data slides here. So this one is our junior class. And like I said, you're gonna see the black is the fall of last year. The red is gonna be your middle of your year winter assessment score. And then this same group in the fall. And then the green represents where we need to get kids to, which is the benchmark score. So you can kind of see the trends. Some areas are trending positive, good growth throughout the year. But in some of those areas, you still see there's a pretty big gap to where we need to get to reach that benchmark. So just so you also have kind of like state averages here for a composite score. So this is where we want kids to get to in the spring with these juniors. For a composite, the state average last year was 19.3, English was 18.1, math was 19.2, reading was 19.7, and science was 19.8. So state average obviously is below those benchmarks, but you can kind of make that comparison. Where do we compare to the state average? And then how do we compare to the goals that are listed there? I'm just gonna skip sophomores and go right to freshmen because I want to point this out. So you can look at the freshman group coming in, taken in September, so early in the year, and you can see, like for example, English, we're right at that benchmark. But then if you go back and you see how much it jumps up to 18 at the end of their junior year. So they actually have to grow 5 points between their freshman and their junior year. So one of the things we've talked about is our growth in our targeted groups, when we look at those, haven't been as positive. Our achievement has always been right at the state average or above, but our growth needs to improve so we meet those benchmarks moving forward. So you can see, like as a start point, again, that freshman group, if you look at that 2 points of growth, they're pretty much on track right now, and we just need to make sure they continue to grow as they move throughout the high school. So I think the biggest gap would be in the science area, but every other one was, they make that 2 points of growth, we'll get students to that benchmark. Any questions about this slide, the junior group?
So in that specific case, 2 points of growth in reading is what you're looking at, right? English. That's the one. Okay.
Each of those areas, yep,
Each year, right?
yep,
So
to be able to stay like on track, yep.
So, as an example, for last year's data, 21-22, we had 0.8 points of growth. Our target was 2 points. When did we know we weren't gonna make 2 points? And what would we do along the way to try to intervene?
At the midpoint last year, we were on track to meet that 2 points.
Okay.
We were at that, so that was fall and winter, right? And the spring assessment they take is actually the ACT or the ACT Aspire, right? So, to answer your correct question, Rich, we were feeling really good at the winter because they almost made that 1 point of growth when we got to the winter mark.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't want to get into too much detail, but the high school did a lot of different things with Mastery Prep last year and making sure kids had support throughout the week to practice some of these skill areas, and they were doing a lot of different things. And I think they were pretty excited with where they were at the midpoint. If they weren't, right, then I think you break down those sub areas and you say, okay, what skills did our kids not perform well on? And then you're looking at like, are we addressing these within our instruction in these courses? Or are there instructional things we need to tweak or change? So you're trying to be responsive middle of the year. And they did that anyway, right? That's what they were doing middle of the year. But I mean, they were feeling like they were on track with their data at the winter last year.
So at some point you may get one of these checkpoint tests before the one that counts in the spring that may indicate that there's a skill that is lacking in proficiency. Are we then mapping that to our power standards and saying, okay, well, we thought they were proficient, but they're not, so we have to fix the standards, or we have to find out why we thought they were proficient, but they didn't demonstrate proficiency?
Yeah, it could be the level of rigor we're teaching the skill, right, in the standard, or it could be we're not teaching that area at all within our standards and we need to add that into the mix. So when we get that breakdown, we see an item analysis of which questions kids were successful on, which skill areas, and then they can kind of dissect that and pull that out and do exactly what you were saying.
So the item analysis that you're talking about, we get that feedback from the tests that we administer leading up into the spring.
Yep.
So what is the duration of time? How long does it take us to say, identify that gap and then try to adjust a power standard? Is there enough time to do it before April, or is this an adjustment that we wouldn't see an effective return on until the following year? Just trying to understand what that decision.
I would say, I mean, when we had October 7th and they're looking at, let's use that as an example, if we're looking at that data, most of the teams are planning for a start date to make those changes the following week or very soon after that. So I think whether the results happen immediately, I don't know. That's yet to be determined. The changes are happening immediately to adjust to that information that they have.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of the elementary or K through 8. I just wanted to point a couple things out here. And I just did fall to spring. I know when we met at the curriculum meeting, I had fall, winter, spring, and then fall. And I just kept it to the same group, looking at growth from fall to spring. So I wanted to point out with second and third grade, specifically we give, it's a fluency assessment and aligns what we found very well in correlating to how students perform on the forward test in terms of the percentages here. So if you look at 46% of students were proficient on the CBM fluency assessment, and we had about 38% on the forward proficient on the reading portion. So typically if we see that number going up and we're improving kids' fluency, then we're going to see an uptick in how students perform on the forward. These scores are going to be a little bit higher than what our forward average is right now, because this is looking at the 50th percentile. And I know Teresa and I had this conversation last week. To be proficient on the forward, you have to be in the 65th to 70th percentile. It's a really high number. So, these numbers aren't too far off, but we were at 38.4 or 5 last spring with students that scored at proficiency.
What grade level did you say?
What's that?
Grade level?
For the forward, it's third. We take it, the data we're looking at is 3rd through 8. This is the fast bridge, obviously, and kindergarten through 8 take this. And you can see there are pockets of grade levels that didn't show progress from fall to spring. And I think that's where our, we do it at the administrative level, building principals do a great job at the building level to really dissect that information and drill down and identify, is it skill areas that need to be addressed? Is it a resource issue? Is it an instructional issue? What is it? To be able to hopefully make adjustments. And we get a winter score rich, so we can make those adjustments middle of the year as well, before the end of the year. So I'd like to come back in February, because we give this again in January, and give you guys an update with where our kids were at this fall, and then where are we at in the winter, and be able to give you a progress update and share some information that's from this school year. Because I think all the work that we're doing is going to lead to positive results, but it's not going to be a quick turnaround and happen overnight. So I think we're excited that we're doing some really good work across the district, and that we're going to see some positive trends across all the data. Did I miss anything, Joe?
No. That's good.
Any other questions? Probably exceeded the 10 minute limit.
Questions?
Thank you. We're on to the referendum update. This is item H. Referendum is November 8th. This is the last board meeting before the referendum. So, from administration and how things are going so far with the efforts to inform.
So we've been doing many presentations last week, and it slows down a little bit this week. There's just things and just some questions that are coming. Ron and I are taking most of those questions. So tomorrow, I will be doing an open office on the first floor of the public library from 10:30 until noon. There's no agenda. Anybody can come, and if they have questions, they're certainly welcome to come, and I will answer the questions about the referendum tomorrow morning in the magazine or the periodical section of the public library. So I'll just post down there for about an hour and a half, and when people come in, let them engage with their questions. We also, we update our questions almost daily on the website at monroeschools.com. So there's been several questions. We did present at the Senior Center in the Farm Bureau at the end of last week, and people were very interested in knowing what the net increase on their taxes were. As a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen at one of the presentations, he interrupted Ron a couple times and said, I just need to know how much more this is going to cost me. He goes, I have a $200,000 house. So based on last year's rate, it'll cost him $13 more per 100,000 for on his. So on his $200,000 house, his tax increase with a passage of referendum would be $26. So there are still some people that they see that and they think that it's too good to be true, but the truth is that's what it is with the different things that have come into play with the additional state revenues and the increase in the summer school monies and all the different things that are happening. So it's kind of weird to say this, but everything is kind of lined up to make this a very optimal time to be able to do the project. So real quick too, CG Schmidt, obviously we've been working closely with them, and they've done many projects here in Monroe, and they are known, they have a great reputation for quality. So hopefully that's not going to be any type of problem. But again, tomorrow morning, anybody that has questions, if they want to stop in the library during the morning from 10:30 to noon, I will be down there to answer questions.
If this doesn't pass, what would the tax look like at a $100,000 house?
That would have been the first levy that we adopted tonight. There'd be a reduction in the operating levy, so the levy would go down. we had it on item, I gotta go look it up. So, we would go to $7.25, so it'd be about $1.95 reduction.
I can't hear the question.
And then
That
another
would-
$1,000, $195.
That'd be the reduction.
Yeah, I didn't.
$195 on a $100,000 house is the reduction to the house. Okay, any additional questions, comments, anything that we'd like the administration to provide an answer?
Again, one more thing I'd just like to say is there's a wealth of information on our website. Jen has done a great job of keeping that updated with videos, questions and answers. There's also a short video of a project that C.G. Schmidt did at Wisconsin Dells, which we did a tour on with the board and some community members, so they can kind of get a video idea of what a modern learning environment looks like. And I would highly recommend that people take a look at it.
Thank you. Yep, continue to remind people if they have questions about the project, the process, the tax impact, anything, please have them contact the administration. And please remind everybody you know to vote. Alright. On to item 9, informational items. Boardsmanship, administration, I think we've got a note in there about letting Cindy know if we'd be able to make the WASB. Can we know by the 15th?
By the 15th of November, if possible.
Convention is January 18th through the 21st this year. Anything from administration?
Nope.
Okay. No Board of Education correspondence, I'm aware of. Committee reports, Eric?
Nothing.
Dylan?
Policy month, we had 2 sets of updates. One set we brought as consent to the meeting, the full meeting tonight. And then we'll have a second reading for the rest in November.
Terry?
Nothing,
Nikki?
nothing.
Teresa?
Nothing from committees, but I just mostly congratulations to both the boys and the girls cross country teams who both will be running in state this weekend on Saturday, so that's really exciting that both teams made it. They ran really well last Saturday, and so congratulations to both of those teams.
Phil? Cheryl?
Cheesemakers.
Yeah, that's right. Cheryl?
I have nothing.
Okay. Alright, agenda items for future discussion from board members. I have no contact from the liaison, so I don't believe there's a report from the liaison. Nobody here from the media, no questions from the media. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. It is 7:54.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Terry. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.